Most executives spend 80% of their energy fighting battles they cannot win. They set massive company goals, but then the market shifts, a supply chain breaks, and interest rate spikes, and suddenly the whole simplification strategy falls apart. If you keep burning your team's energy trying to control things you can't touch, two things happen. Your people burn out and your targets get missed. Today, I'm showing you a simple 3-part formula that fixes this immediately. So by the end of this video, you will have a simple model of your strategic strategy, protecting your team, focusing your team, and achieve consistent outcomes, even in a rather chaotic market. We are breaking down a powerful strategic framework represented by a simple math equation. And that equation is E equals fx plus E, or y equals fx plus E, or a function of x's. Now, don't worry, this is not high school algebra, and I'm sure many of you might recognize this from various types of studies you've done in the past. And stick around, because there is a silent E factor, which I call the E factor trap, that causes 90% of leaders to make complicated and deepening or make decisions that deepen the complications within the business. So let's start with the left side, which is the why. Why? Oh, that's not even visible. Let me get another one. Why? Why is that final strategic objective? It's what you actually want to focus your business on. It's what you want to achieve. Think of why like the destination you type into your GPS before you hit the road on a wonderful trip. If you type in, take me somewhere fun, or just somewhere fun, your GPS could help you. But if you type in a specific address, every turn becomes clear. In business, leaders often make the why too vague. They say something like, we want to improve our culture, or we want to be more innovative. Those aren't destinations, those are wishes. A true why is precise and measurable. It's something like increase market share by 5% in 12 months, or cut costs or customer onboarding time in half. When why is crystal clear, every person on the team knows exactly what winning looks like. But setting the target is only 10% of the work. It's the least it takes a bit of effort, but it is not the most important. The real magic happens when we look at what actually drives the why. This brings us back to the formula, and the levers we are talking about here is fx, f being the function of x, and typically there are several x's in an organization that will drive the outcome, x1, x2, xn, various x's that will drive it. And these represent internal variables. They are the controllable stuff, the stuff inside your organization that you can actually control. Think of the why as winning a basketball game, and the X's are the many free throws your team practices every single day. You can't directly control the scoreboard during the game, but you can control your practice and your practice routine. In your organization, X's consist of your internal levers, and these levers vary. There are many of them. Levers you can pull may include, as an example, your team, or your team's capacity, their availability, time and energy, your productivity, how fast and accurate work gets done, your predictability, how reliable the systems are, and your controls, how well you manage internal processes. High-performing leaders don't obsess over the outcome. They obsess over managing these internal levers. When you sharpen the right axis, Y takes care of itself. However, even if your internal operations are flawless, there's a third element in this equation that can completely throw off your results. And I bet you've already guessed what that is. Yep, it is that little E. And what does the E stand for? This stands for external factors, or the noise out there. I often liken to say there's a big E and there's a little e. So let's focus on the big E to start with. These are the uncontrollable elements in the world around you. The inflation, the sudden regulation changes, competitor changes or competitor moves, technology advancements, global supply chain hiccups, and there's a category typically referred to as the acts of God. And these are things like catastrophes and pandemics and the like. They directly impact your business. So we manage our X's to compete in that E environment, the world out there. Imagine you're sailing a boat. The X's is how you set your sails and steer the wheel. The E is the direction and strength of the wind. Weak leaders spend all day yelling at the wind. They make excuses when E blows off, typically when E blows them off course. But great leaders accept E as a constant reality. You cannot control the external environment. What you can do is build an agile strategy so that when E shifts, your team can adjust the sails, your internal variables, all those X's, without losing sight of the goal, the bigger Y. Now, this leads us to the biggest mistake senior executives make when balancing X with E. And this is where we're probably going to get more into the small cap E. There's a major trap, and here it is. Here is the major trap that catches even seasoned leaders. When results drop, weak leaders try to fix the E. They focus in on the noise. They want to fix the E that maybe has caught them off guard and has suddenly hit the business, or it's an E that they're anticipating, they sort of planned for, and in that planning, they went a little bit too much on the control side. They try to fight external conditions that are completely out of their hands. Or even worse, they overcomplicate internal systems, adding 20 new priorities, complex software, and endless meetings. That is the trap. Complexity destroys execution. Let me try and capture that in a different way. External uncertainty. And we're living in a world of, often referred to as the VUCA world, vulnerable, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So that increases. External uncertainty increases. Internally, we feel the need to control. So we start adding controls to take care of what's happening out there in this VUCA world. To do that, internally, we make additions. We keep adding things, add meetings, add software, add checkpoints, add reports, etc. And what happens? Complexity rises. Goes through the roof. And what impact does that have on the business? Capacity to adapt in this VUCA world where you really need to be able to adapt, that goes down. Your job as an executive, as a leader, is not to add more complexity. Your job is simplification. Look at your business right now through this equation. Is your destination, your why, crystal clear to everyone? Are you focusing 80% of your resources on the internal levers, the X's that you actually can control and that make the biggest difference? Have you accounted for external noise without letting it distract you from your core execution? When you simplify your strategic framework down to what you can control, your organization moves faster, it adapts quicker, and achieves predictable success. Mastering this equation is how top leaders eliminate confusion and hit aggressive goals year after year. If this way of simplifying leadership problems is useful, like and subscribe, and in the next video we can go one step further and look at how to identify the X's that actually deserves your attention. So once again, if this spoke to you, I'd love you to subscribe, because on this channel we'll explore simplification leadership, strategic simplification, tactics, tools, and what it means to live and lead a simplified business. Thank you for joining me in this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next.